Welcome everyone to our last meeting of the year. How about it? You know, I hope everybody is going to enjoy the holiday season and whatever festivities you have, but Merry Christmas. Right? I'd like to get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so Joel's not there, right? All right. A little bit of change in venue. Our first speaker on CCA is not here, not logged in yet, so we're going to go to number 2 and have Ryan Bond and Randy to talk about our storm drain and GIS mapping with task orders that the village put in place several months ago. You want to be on the screen?
I would like to, if I could be, yeah. Is that possible?
Just bring the cable.
I can bring it over to you if that's,
Just bring it over here. This one?
that would be great.
So you have to get out for him to get in?
There we go. All right.
Is that working?
You're
Yeah,
up.
there you go.
Perfect.
Excellent. All right, the floor is yours, sir.
So, yeah, as Gary had mentioned, the village had tasked Ty and Bond with helping with an inventory and assessment of stormwater drainage infrastructure. And this process started about fall of this year, maybe late summer, where we started to inventory stormwater infrastructure within the community. The basis of this inventory was that the village had previously had a drainage map that had been put together by an old board member, if I'm not wrong, Gary.
Heinz Sauer.
Heinz Sauer. And so that drainage map was a 2D representation of drainage infrastructure within the community. It had been aged and it hadn't been updated along the way. It was quite accurate, as it turns out, when we did our inventory. But it didn't have a lot of additional information that we can provide today with some of the modern technologies that we have. And so our task was basically to update this map in an electronic format so that the village could have a dynamic document and technology moving forward so that they could update it. This would be for the DPW. As they make amendments to the drainage system, they could add new infrastructure to the map, and there would be a running record of what the stormwater infrastructure for the community looks like. Things we were tasked with inventorying included catch basins, dry wells, drainage pipes, culverts, and outfalls. We did this process using ArcGIS Online, which is a cloud-based format, so we would be able to turn this information over to the village. That's a separate taskbar we're going to work on. Things we were going to assess as part of this was, what are the conditions of the catch basins? What size are the catch basins? Is there any clogs within the catch basins? Are they full of debris, leaves, things like that? For dry wells, you know, are they look like they're functioning appropriately? What size are the grates? Are things we measured? How far to invert? So if we ever wanted to do like a very preliminary hydraulic assessment in the future, we could use the depths to inverts and LiDAR information to help inform those hydraulic assessments. So it'd be really high level hydraulic assessments, but they're something we've used in the past to kind of truth something out, whether it's gonna have enough capacity to flow or not. Other things we want to make sure is we identify outfalls. What do they look like? Outfalls have a tendency to get grown over or have erosion occur where they get backed up. And so we want to map where they are and take a picture of what they look like today so that we have a...
Sorry, could you define what an outfall is?
Sure, that's a good point.
Thank you.
So an outfall would be a location where a stormwater system would flow out into the watershed. For instance, the Landsman Kill. If a large section of drainage came down to the Landsman Kill, where that pipe discharged to the Landsman Kill would be considered an outfall.
Thank you.
Sure. Other things that I didn't mention that we've inventoried are culverts. There's a little bit of nuance between drainage pipes and culverts, and that can often be confusing to communities. So a drainage pipe connects drainage infrastructure like manholes and catch basins. A culvert passes a stream or a water body from one side of the road to the other. And so that's just a small distinguishing identity there, but I want to make sure we're clear on what those two items are because they'll come up later. We also, while we didn't measure the quantity of, we also noted in this inventory where swales were, specifically if they helped convey portions of the stormwater system. So if a portion of a drainage system all came to a single point where it was an outfall and an outfall to an open drainage ditch, say along a roadway, and that drainage ditch carried it over and then it re-entered the drainage system, we wanted to note that swale because it's important for the community to maintain it long-term so that we can keep the drainage system functioning appropriately. So we marked areas where drainage swales were present. We spent approximately 8 days in the field measuring drainage infrastructures. You may have seen we had 2 interns out there. I was out there some of the time. We were opening structures and we had opportunity to talk to some of the community during that time. And so it was a good exercise for us. After that process was over, we came back to the village and we had identified a few areas of concern that we couldn't really inventory. Our inventory was from the surface, and so we can't look down in pipes. And so one of the issues we were having with the village was that there's a lot of blind connections within the community. By a blind connection, I mean it doesn't go to a structure where we could open, say, a manhole structure, look down and say, okay, the pipe goes there. It would be like 2 pipes just tee together, and there's no way to see how they tee together. And so that led to some questions about how drainage systems were laid out. We had identified 4 areas that we asked the village whether they'd like to CCTV to get a little bit more information. And so they allowed us to get a CCTV contractor in here to video the pipe. CCTV is basically closed caption television. They put a little robot down in the pipe and they walk the robot along the pipe and they can make observations regarding condition, whether they're half full of sediment, whether there's root intrusion, or they can look up if they come into a structure and try and figure out where that structure is located. These videos are kind of boring to watch, but they document everything along the way, and they're really helpful for us. The 4 areas we had identified for the village that we wanted to video were North Park Road, which was over by the park, Knollwood Road drainage system, which had some confusing connections that we wanted to clarify, West Chestnut Street drainage, which had a flooding condition and unknown layout, and then Route 9 drainage, and I make a correction here, and I say south side of village because there's 2 portions of Route 9 that we'll talk about that have some curiosities about them. So we originally asked to look at Route 9 drainage on the south side of the village. The findings that we found using CCTV is there's a number of blind connections in the community where pipes just tee together. And the reason a blind connection is a problem for a community or could present a problem for a community, it makes it really hard to maintain pipes. If when you want to vacuum and jet your pipes because they get full of sediment or there's root intrusion, you typically send the jet in from the downstream side of the pipe and you video it from the upstream side. But if you can only get access to the upstream side of it, it's hard to maintain the pipe because you're trying to pull the sediment back to you when the sediment wants to flow with the water downhill. And so blind connections can be troubling for a couple of reasons, but that's one of the #1 reasons. We found some root intrusions, not a ton of root intrusions. I have a photo in the lower right-hand corner here, lower left-hand corner, of root intrusions. The foreground of those root intrusions are not the more troubling one. It's really tough to see in this lighting, but in the background, about half of the pipe is filled in with a root intrusion, and that is over on West Chestnut Street drainage, where I think you guys have had some flooding issues in the past. And so that root is kind of taking over half the capacity of that pipe and could maybe causing some of your issues you're having over there. The pipe above it is an image from North Park Road, where we suspected that we had dry wells and catch basins that went down into the park. That pipe fills all the way up to about 3/4 full the further the robot moves forward. So that pipe is basically full of sediment and no longer operational. We still can't find the outfall. The more water we dump in it, the more it just disappears. But It doesn't outlet anywhere and it's full of material. So we'll have to discuss what repair options might be there. Time bound at 3 days in the field with Aerial Construction completing these CCTV inspections. And they were great to help us figure out kind of what layouts were there. We have little questions left for layout and how things run together. Any questions before I move on about that process? No.
Yeah, sorry.
Sure.
So you said you looked at the actual catch basin or the dry well itself.
Yeah.
Did you find any of our catch basins collapsing walls, or were you going to get into that later?
We're gonna one more slide on that.
Perfect.
So basically, I just wanted to give you guys a quantity of what we assessed. In total, we assessed we've laid out about 6.3 mile of pipe within the village. A total of 363 structures were assessed and individually measured. That includes 304 catch basins, which by far is your most frequent structure. There's about 38 dry wells in the community. I suspect that some of the catch basins will become dry wells once they get backed out, and that'll go to your question before, but you have a number of catch basins in the community that are half or somewhat full of sediment is what I should say. And so in a dry well condition, if it's full of sediment, I can't tell if there's a catch basin or a dry well. And so I suspect we'll probably, as you start to maintain a couple of these structures, we may find there's more dry wells than we know. There's about 21 manholes in sight. Go ahead.
What is the difference between a catch basin and a dry well? Yeah.
So a catch basin is a solid structure that would hold water. As water builds up in it, it goes out via a drainage pipe.
Okay.
A dry well is a structure that has openings in the side walls of it. And because Rhinebeck has areas that has really nice soils, we can infiltrate water back into the ground. Okay. It's a great way of not having to oversize your system to take all the storm away. And it also allows groundwater recharge, which is a positive for stormwater management. Yeah. We have about 21 manholes. I also suspect that number will go up as we continue to utilize the system and as we inventory more. In our process of CCTVing, we found some buried manholes. I'm betting there's more buried manholes. Because manholes...
Paved over?
Yeah, they get paved over time. Whether the roadway gets lifted up and no one changes the elevation of the manhole. It's not infrequent to find buried manholes, but...
We found several already.
Yeah, when you can uncover them, it's ideal to uncover them. I also suspect that you're going to, as you develop new areas or revitalize drainage system, you're going to want to add more manholes to the system so that we eliminate some of those blind connections. Number of culverts that we found, there's 46 culverts in the community, about 2,300 linear feet of culverts that cross under roadways. Condition of infrastructure. It's not as bad as you would think. So the number of catch basins that need to be vacuumed are 82, and dry wells 7. Needs immediate attention, 23 catch basins and 3 dry wells. I'd like to say we were overly conservative in this assessment. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to identify the things that we wanted Kyle and the DPW to put their eyes on. So when we say needs immediate attention, it could be something super simple, like a structure we couldn't open with our 5-pound hammer. It may just take, Kyle's crew with a sledgehammer and a little bit more time to open a structure. But you want to be able to open them so that you can properly maintain them over the years. And you don't want to have to do that in an emergency situation. You want to have them do it when the DPW has time to do those activities. I would say that a third of your catch basins that need to be vacuumed is not uncommon for communities. Particularly with communities as many street trees as you have, that debris is going to flow along the roadway. It's going to fill into the catch basins, and it's going to start filling them up. Part of what I think drives some of the catch basins to fill up with debris is the sizing of pipes. Your DPW standard or highway standard for pipe size would be a minimum size of 15-inch. And as you can see on the right-hand side here, there is a number of pipes that are under 15 inch pipes. So you have a small 6-inch pipe and you have a bunch of leaves coming down into it during a large storm event in the fall, it's easy for those pipes to clog up. So one of the things you may want to identify as a community, moving forward is if you're going to repave roads, you may want to look at this map and say, hey, do we have any undersized pipe in the area? what is the condition of our structures? You know, do we want to do a repair to some drainage infrastructure in that area the year prior to us repaving a road? And this map kind of allows you to make that assessment at a whim rather than having to send people out and make that assessment on the road. Other things, you know, poor condition. You have a lot of old drainage structures. Poor condition may mean I want to point it out to you, but it doesn't need immediate repair. Like it's going to be fine, but this structure is old. If you're going to repave a road, you may want to consider it. You have plenty of fair condition and good condition structures in the community, all which are operating well. Needs immediate attention on culverts. There's a number of reasons that you could need immediate attention on a culvert. Excuse me. One could be like a corrugated metal pipe, which is those steel pipes that you see that are ribbed all the time. They last for about 50 to 75 years before they have a rotted invert. They can have a rotted invert. And so it may mean it has a rotted invert, but the pipe is structurally holding up just fine. We just want to note it in the map. It could mean that an inlet or an outlet of the pipe is partially submerged, and we wanted to bring the DPW's attention to it so that they can properly clean it out and make sure it's free of debris. It could also just mean there's branches in front of it, and we wanted someone to come and clean it out. We just tried to bring as much attention to structures that we thought needed attention so that the DPW has the opportunity to maintain these things. Anything else I wanted to cover here? Oh, unknown other pipe sizes. I know that can be a bit confusing because a large percentage of the pipe within the community is unknown or other. There's portions of pipe within the community that may change in size from one end to the other, such as if somebody made a repair along the way, you know, they may have upsized a portion from 12-inch to 15-inch. And if we saw disagreeing sizes from one side of the pipe to the other, we made note of it within the pipe notes, but we didn't assign it a size. So there may be more information if you click on an individual pipe within that ArcGIS Online program, but we didn't want to assign it a size because it was really unknown what size the pipe is throughout.
Is 15 inches the standard that is currently recommended? 15 inches or greater, or is there a current standard that you would recommend?
I would say 15 inches on par with other communities. You know, there's 12 to 15 is about the average we see. Other communities in the area use 15-inch quite regularly. I would say also you don't want to stay stuck on 15 inches. There's a number of opportunities where maybe you're dealing with shallow cover and a single catch basin where a 12-inch pipe is appropriate. I'm more worried about the 6 or 8-inch pipes than I am anything, you know, the 10 or 12s. Those just seem to be undersized and have an opportunity to clog pretty quickly.
But just to add on to that, though, Rick, in terms of 15, that's sort of what we recommend as a minimum size. As you move from the upper part of a drainage area to the lower part, flow may require, like a hydraulic analysis may require that pipe size get bigger. So customarily, we see smaller pipes at the upper end and larger pipes at your outfall end.
We hope to see that at least.
Yes, we do. No.
I just wanted to get a sense for, like, you know, if we're, oh my God, we see an 8-inch pipe, then like, should we be aiming for a 12 or 15, or what's the, you know, but I guess also where it is within the system matters.
Yeah.
Did you notice that on the previous slide you had like clay, or I don't know, you didn't mention wood, but that's one of my favorite stories from the Big Dig was them finding like wood pipes. Were the 6-inch or less, were those typically the older pipes or not? No correlation there?
I'd have to look a little bit more into that, but I don't believe so. I believe there was no correlation to age versus size. You know,
Okay.
just material varied for each one. I can look back into it, but
No, I mean, no worries. Like, it was just more, you know, can we
Yeah.
knock out 2 birds with 1 stone?
it's not uncommon for, you know, somebody has a 6-inch pipe laying around in the yard and we've got to get this catch basin connected. We see it quite often. It just tends to be a maintenance issue for a catch basin or a drywall.
Got it. And is that where you were usually seeing them, was in catch basin connections to the system, not
Yeah.
in like the system
Not feeders.
flowing?
In catch basin connections to the system, yes.
Okay, got it.
If there was a 6-inch in the middle of the system, we'd probably already know about it, but yeah. Was there any other questions? I know this map is very hard to see. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what our deliverable is for this inventory assessment. We basically take a two-pronged approach. We create a hard copy map that the village can post in the DPW room so that someone can make a quick reference. This map has a legend associated with it that tells you condition of pipe and quantity of pipe in certain areas. Also, obviously, we'll turn over the ArcGIS online to the community. We're working with the DPW staff now in order to get that data turned onto a village ArcGIS line count where we could still help them edit it, but they have the editing rights as well, because right now it's on our system and the village doesn't have the ability to edit at the moment. Once we get that turned over, we'll kind of partner in getting any data left over onto the system. One of the things we're currently working on before we transfer that over is all the CCTV video that we took from that phase 2. We want to identify that to the individual pipe that we videoed. So say if Kyle wants to come back at some point and say, hey, I want to see what that pipe condition was, he can just click on a link and watch the video associated with that pipe. Just one
Ryan,
go ahead.
Question. So I like this map because it points where we are and what we have. Is there any way to say we should have more in another area? Like if there's an area towards the north of the village center that doesn't have any perceivable drainage in it?
That's a good question, Gary. You know, when we started out as an inventorying
Of the existing structure.
of the existing,
Right.
and I don't know that I've contemplated. I would think, Gary, that yourself or Kyle would have gotten flooding concerns if additional drainage infrastructure is required. And there's not anything that comes to the top of my mind that we've talked about that's like, oh, we don't have drainage infrastructure over there, and this is a problem area. But it's something we probably should consider. Brandy, with your experience in the area, is there anything you can think of where we're short drainage infrastructure?
Similarly, nothing comes to mind immediately, but I think one of the functions of this as a tool is that where you start to see a problem, or if you get calls from the community saying, hey, we're having flooding here on such and such a day after such and such a rainstorm, we want to use that to put a different symbol that says this is an area where we have an existing new problem and maybe need to look at it. I know Ryan's going to go to another slide to talk about where there are still some areas of concern we want to just flag for you as you're starting to think ahead about infrastructure maintenance. But Ryan, can you speak just a little bit about the data on the back end? And I know we don't have available tonight a live demo of the GIS, but at some point if you want to see that, just if you're interested, Ryan's working with Kyle on that. But there's if you could go into how each pipe segment and structure has a data form that goes with it that provides information.
When we made the assessment, we used an application that's called Survey 123, and we have a survey form that the person who's doing the assessment would fill out, and each type has its own set of questions that they're going to fill out for it. That data gets automatically uploaded into this ArcGIS system with the identifying structure. So it's really hard to see as you're looking at it right now, but actually each one of these squares, and I apologize for skipping slides here, but each one of these squares represents a catch basin. That catch basin color tells you what condition it's in, and there's a legend that's associated with it. If you click on that square, a sidebar will pop up. That sidebar will include an image and the pavement condition around the catch basin right now. What the size of the rim is, so if there was a discussion of whether that rim was too small or not. What the structure's depth is. What type of invert sizes are leaving and coming into that structure. What the width of the structure, the concrete structure itself is. The material of the structure, if it's brick or if it's concrete. Trying to think of what else. Our assessment of condition and any notes associated with that assessment of condition.
That's all time-stamped.
Yeah,
Date.
with who took it.
Fantastic.
And so, in the future, as the village starts making their own assessments, as things begin to change or they change things out, it will say Kyle, Amy on January 20th, 2025, assessed this catch basin and took this photo, and here are the notes. And so it's all associated with the particular user, and we'll update as we go along. for drainage lines, you see there's 3 or 4 different drainage pipes with different colors here. The colors associate with what we determined to be the condition. Pipe's condition was a little bit trickier, and I don't know if I talked about that yet already. Because we didn't CCTV all of the community, we only CCTV'd select areas. Pipe condition is really hard to tell from the little small image of the invert you can see from inside a catch basin. So if we could make an assessment on pipe condition, we did, based on what we could see from the invert, or if it was clear from the CCTV there was something wrong with the pipe, we made that assessment there. Otherwise, they're kind of just general assessments of condition based on like material, like HDPE is typically a newer pipe material, and so if we saw HDPE pipe, we assume that to be good pipe, good condition pipe.
Can you go back a slide, because I have one more
Sure
question? An area that's always concerned me is the Mulberry Street, just connections on Mulberry, you know, that come down and then come down Livingston Street, cross over Center Street, come all the way down and then feed into Landsman Kill.
Yep.
The sizes of the pipes, as this is continuously collecting more and more water.
Yeah.
Is that something that you considered, or that's not part of this analysis? Because that's a long path.
It is. We did not consider the hydraulic patterns and whether a pipe needed to be upsized. I think for the particular area, we may have previously done a hydraulic analysis of at least Center Street area, right? And I don't think we did north of Center Street.
Gotcha.
So, you know, if it's something we needed to extend, we could take, based on the measurements we took and LiDAR data, we could take a quick look at areas north of that, and then determine if we needed to do survey to get kind of better data to do a more in-depth hydraulic analysis. Any other
I
questions?
mean, we would know if that was a problem because we'd be seeing backup further up the system, right?
You would, yeah, you would typically, if you have a pipe sizing condition, not in your short rainfall events, but in your more deluge rain events, you're gonna find catch basins starting to back up and you'll find water bubbling back out of catch basins rather than going in them. And so they're kind of, I don't wanna say they're self-policing, but the community will usually come to you pretty quick if you got water coming out of catch basin grates. And so they're pretty identifiable when you have those restrictions. Now, that being said, you know, we don't have, typically we try to, at a minimum, design for 10-year storms. And we don't get a full 24-hour 10-year storm all that often. And so there could be issues within the community that as we start to get more intense rainstorms, you may find along the way.
I think another thing to consider is that sometimes, because there's no house nearby, it doesn't go into somebody's cellar, you might not get.
There's not an
So
effective,
like I've walked into Village Green more than once where the water was up over my sneakers, I mean, it was up to my ankles.
okay. Interesting. Okay. I mean, as far as, it's Village, I forget Village Green, is that public streets there, or is that a private street? Private,
It's
okay.
kind of,
The parking area in Village Green is private, and private coming out the exit road until it turns over to the village.
Okay. Hopefully the residents of Village Green would have the opportunity to speak to the private developer though, right? If it's flooding and they have a hard time getting access to cars, but yeah. So after our inventorying and our CCTV work, we did have some recommended improvements or conclusions that we wanted to share with the village, because there's always, what are our next steps? And so, you know, you guys all saw the numbers for repair, maintain catch basins. You know, that's kind of our first high-level conclusion that I think would provide, you know, most benefit to the community. It's, like I said, it's pretty standard for about 30% of catch basins within a community to need some type of maintenance. Some communities I've worked with in the past kind of use that as their metric for catch basin vacuuming. They try to vacuum 33% of the catch basins a year, and that way they're vacuuming a catch basin once every 3 years. They set their catch basins up on a schedule. It's just the way I've seen some communities do it in the past. The second, you know, conclusion we came to was that there needs to be some type of repair for the drainage pipe on North Park Road at the intersection of North Park and Arnett Road. This ties with the Lions Mini project. That pipe is clearly clogged and not functioning appropriately. You still can't find an outfall, and we've dumped like hundreds of gallons of water down it. And so that may be contributing to the soft condition we're getting at the park. And so it's some type of expansion of the Lions Mini Park project to include catching that water from the intersection of Arnett and North Park Road should be considered. And I'm gonna zoom in on these areas, so if you're not familiar with these areas, just give me a second to get through the bullets and we'll look at each one. The third conclusion is that the village should probably consider making a repair or realign drainage at the intersection of Knollwood Road and Arnett. This was an area that we had to go CCTV to understand what was happening. There's a lot of repairs and blind connections in that area that are gonna make it really hard to maintain that system in the future. And there's a lot of drainage area coming to that. If it was like only a couple of catch basins, we'd probably say just leave it. But because of how much upstream drainage comes down to that area, I think it's probably best that you make some repairs and realignment to the drainage infrastructure in that area so that the village has access to all the different pipes and endpoints. Number 4 is research easements for Knollwood drainage system from South Parsonage to Violet Place to Huntington Road. There's a lot of drainage infrastructure that's off of public property. It's on private property. And there's some of it that's filed on easements in the filed maps, but there's portions of that missing. And there's a lot of infrastructure and stormwater that heads that direction. So it would be helpful for the village to kind of understand what their responsibilities are there and what their abilities to maintain that infrastructure is. I will tell you that when we CCTV'd it, it was in good condition. So it's not like there's an imminent repair happening there. I just think for a long-term process, while we have momentum, we may want to consider understanding that easement area appropriately. This goes back to the Route 9 drainage, CCTV Route 9 drainage from West Chestnut Street to Outfall. This is on the north side of the village, where I think there's a little bit of a flooding issue over by Rugies. That system all comes down to Route 9 drainage, and then it heads south. Unfortunately, the day we were out there with the CCTV truck, the pipe was 100% full of water, and so they couldn't camera it. And so we may want to reassess that if on a dry day, if it actually dries out, or if there's a clog in the pipe and something's happening causing it to back up. But we may want to come back to that pipe and figure out where it outfalls and whether it needs a repair. And number 6 is research drainage easement for Bird Court. Bird Court is a private development and there's some private roads back there, but the village owns a property which there's an infiltration basin on. And I believe the village has the right to maintain that infiltration basin. We just want to make sure that the drainage infrastructure that we didn't inventory because we thought it was a private road isn't also the responsibility of the village. So that we just need to kind of understand what the responsibilities of the village are in that area as well. Just for those of you that may not know the areas, here's North Park. Sorry, I'm getting control of my mouse. Here's North Park Road. We had previously identified this area as needing CCTV because there's a number of blind connections that come to this outfall at the Landsman Hill. And then up here, there's a pipe that leaves this catch basin. It's actually a dry well, my apologies. They leave this dry well and head north towards the Landsman Hill. But we could never find where the outfall was in Landsman Hill. We dumped dye down it. We dumped a lot of water down it. And so that was the pipe that you saw CCTV that was, you only saw it half full of sediment, but it gets to a point where it's about 3/4 full of sediment. And there's a number of joints within that pipe that are not well connected. It's a concrete pipe. So I think we're losing a lot of water through those joints. Knollwood Road in Arnett. Here's the intersection of Knollwood and Arnett. It's so busy that you can't really even tell what's going on unless you're in the GISF and zoom really close to it. But there's a lot of pipes going every which direction, a lot of repairs that were made over the years, and we probably just need to clean it up so that we can see what's, we have access to all the different drainage points. Here is the area that I was talking about, that there's a lot of drainage infrastructure that is on private property. You can tell the amount of area that is discharging. It's all the area from, Cozine Avenue, part of Sunset Road, down to Clossy Drive, all comes to this one point and then heads on to private property. Goes, we found some buried structures under some driveways, and then discharges out eventually over to a swale over here where it is a culvert under Huntington Road, and eventually ends up in the Landsman Hill. But the portion that I've highlighted here is the portion that appears to be drainage infrastructure on private property.
And I think that there's a home there that has flooding in the front yard.
Well, the intersection, that swale down in the bottom of Huntington floods on us all the time.
Yeah, they pump their basement into the street, which which doesn't work because it just flows right back into the river.
I will tell you that the culvert on Huntington Avenue was one of the ones identified as needing immediate attention, but the inlet and outlet for that one is totally buried. I felt it via a stick, but I can't see the pipe at all. So that's one of the ones that, you know, the village should probably look at for maintenance. This area is the portion of Route 9 that we're curious about where the outfall is. This red dashed line you see with the arrows is where we think the pipe is heading. Unfortunately, you know, with it being full of water, we can't send the camera down it. But we may want to come back to that one and assess what's happening there.
Out of curiosity, how does that work with the state road?
The state has informed us that all the infrastructure within the village is the village's responsibility.
We've been down
The road is the
We've been
state's.
down this path with
And it'll take us 5 years to get a permit with them in order to fix it?
No,
Hopefully not.
we can go in and fix it.
Oh, we can go in and fix it?
Yep.
Do we have to tell them?
But we own it.
Do we have to tell them when we're going in and fix it?
Yeah, because if there's any road transportation issues, but.
Right. Okay. So it's not a total disaster?
No.
Okay.
This is the area on Bird Court. We had kind of stopped inventorying because we recognized that these streets were private. But back here is this red area, which is an infiltration basin. And, you know, under village ownership, the property is under village ownership. And so we came back to this one as like, hey, we may want to reconsider what's happening with drainage infrastructure in this area and whether there needs to be additional inventorying / assessment of needs in that area.
So that part of Village Green there, is that?
I'm so sorry.
Is that village or is that not, is that Village Green's responsibility?
So this is all private. This area right here is all private.
Okay.
That's private.
So the private.
What we have responsibility for Bird Court and John's Way.
Oh, you do have, okay,
Yes, we do. Bird Court and John's Way are our roads.
okay.
But anything going into Village Green and around Village Green is owned by
But the exit there is not.
they also own the
They
exit.
do own it, okay,
Yeah.
'cause that's where it was.
Yeah. It's owned by the.
And so right now the village is maintaining asphalt, stormwater infrastructure and everything on Bird's Court and John's Way.
Well, it's only a few years old,
Okay.
but
I mean,
we haven't done anything to it, but.
okay.
We
I looked at the
We
DOT's
plowed.
local road and it didn't come up there, but maybe I was looking at one too old for it to show there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we are, Bird's Court and John's Way have been turned over to the village.
That's helpful, okay. We will then, as part of this, just take a ride out there. And if there's additional infrastructure we missed on those two roads, we'll just add it to this. Next steps for us, as we talked about, are gonna be kind of turning this information over to, I guess there was one other point I wanted to make. There's, one of the things that I think will be most helpful to the community, specifically as we just talked about here, is making sure that we start documenting easements on this map, because it's one of the things we struggle with the most. As we do studies in areas, you know, Chestnut Street is one that comes to mind, as we're doing a study in that area, we're defining that easement and what the responsibilities are. I think we want to start like outlining those areas on this map and providing attachment to whatever the documentation we have for those easements. So if Kyle needs to go in and do maintenance in the future, or whoever's maintaining the system, they can click on those easements, pull up the information. So, you know, as the village researches easements, we want to add it to a map, and as the planning board may approve more easements, we want to make sure that that's making its way to the village board so that we can add it to here and get it updated in the map.
One question, on the map before, didn't we have some issues with like a swale or an easement that was on the west side of Route 9 in between Village Green and the pipe headed north and went out via the little short street there and then over towards Astor?
Yes, that whole pipe is the one you mentioned before. It actually comes down, drains into, like, comes down, dumps into Route 9, crosses over at Ruby's, go underneath Ruby's crossing lot, goes behind the front side of Village Green is here, the houses are here.
Right.
There's an easement in the middle
Right.
that we own, and it goes down through that, follows the sewer pipe, and eventually heads down towards Astor Drive.
So that was not on this map.
Well, it is, it's just, it wasn't on the part that he zoomed in on.
No, there's Village Green.
Sorry guys, I'm not meaning to go back and forth, I was trying to zoom.
That's all right, get the zoom.
Uh,
I can show you what I'm talking about.
you wanna show me on that map without me going back and forth?
So I think we're talking about, here's Village Green. Here's the, let's see, here's the Rugies situation. And then I think there was like a swale or something that ran through here and then eventually
Gets to that pipe.
gets to that pipe and then somehow winds up, or somehow it wound up down there, is my recollection. So didn't we have some flooding issues back there along those property lines?
There was, yes,
Was that-
along those property lines back there. And it's because the property owners have, over the years, filled the swale in. And so what we did, we went back and raised up our pipes, so it wasn't infiltrating into our wastewater pipes. But yes, you're correct.
So we should probably mark that up too.
If there's maybe I'll forward this map to you guys and you guys could just, Gary or Rick,
I'll
wanna
come
just
in and
mark-
I'll go over it with you. I can
Perfect.
point you
Yeah.
to it.
It's because I didn't see it there.
Thank you.
For sure.
I was just saying, good catch. Out of curiosity, the issues that we're dealing with at the end of Chestnut Street that I know that you're thinking about, I don't know if you're thinking about it,
Mhm.
okay.
So we have another task order for that.
Right, yeah, that's a separate issue from this, but is that connected at all to the stormwater system? Or is that an entirely different set of issues?
So it is its own stormwater system in that area.
Right,
It is kind of an isolated system all to itself, and
Okay.
its only other connection is to a DOT culvert that crosses under 308 and out to the Landsman Kill. So it's an isolated portion.
It's really, you're talking about this pipe, right? This
Sorry,
Seymour,
it's
here's
been-
Seymour.
so it's that pipe?
It's this
Yeah.
pipe right here that comes down and then crosses over and then eventually ends up down here going into the kill.
But because it doesn't tie to anything else, it's its own
And-
system to it on its own.
Okay,
And
so we-
this is one of the areas he noted that there's a big root in the pipe too, that
Okay.
could be part of our issues in this area.
The route was over at West Chestnut Street by Rudy's.
Oh, I'm sorry, then I was confused.
Yeah.
I thought it was in this area too, where
No.
we had, but anyways, yes. We have a separate task order because they're looking at the survey maps and everything else to identify where this is all going.
Right, and there's like elevation issues. Yeah, yeah.
About a week ago, we received the survey for that area, and
Oh, great.
we're updating modeling to kind of include that survey, because we assumed some slopes for the time being. And so we'll probably have preliminary findings after the turn of the new year for you guys on that one.
Oh, great, thank you.
The big parcel back there is wet too, and it drains underneath.
Yeah.
Crossmore.
Right, the one that
Feeds
just
us all.
sold, yeah, it's
Yeah.
basically a
So-
wetland.
So there's a lot of.
And our
water
study
that goes that way.
includes all of that area, so, as we're talking about peak runoff rates and stuff like that, we'll include, an assessment of how
Yeah.
much water is coming from that larger parcel.
Okay. Wow.
It's infrastructure.
It's sure.
This is helpful in so many ways.
No, it is, I mean,
Right.
it's just,
Yes.
just out of curiosity, I mean, how much of this is stuff that like, our DPW can maintain, in your experience, that our DPW can sort of maintain on a regular basis versus we're gonna have to go out and find 6 figures worth of grant funding to fix some of this stuff?
The infrastructure doesn't change significantly year to year, right? So it's not a huge labor burden once the initial assessment is done.
Okay.
It's, and most of the time what the village is doing is, hey, that catch basin got vacuumed, I can, change it from its assessment condition of needing to be vacuumed to fair to good condition. So that's literally a drop-down menu, click on a button, that's super easy for them to do. If new drainage was added, say a construction project happened, on, all of Millwood Drive drainage got replaced. I would probably say, depending on how the DPW gets used to the system over time, maybe they wanna have us just add it all in for them. And we can kind of work, if they give us a design map or an as-built map, we can give it to our GIS folks, and we don't even really need to go out in the field unless there was a construction change or a field change. They can place all those structures into place and put all the inverts in and all the pipe sizes in, so, go ahead, Brandy.
If I could just add though, I think in terms of actually performing the work, that would definitely be a question to raise with Kyle.
Okay.
Every DPW we work
Oh,
with
maybe I
is
misunderstood the
a
question.
little bit
That's okay.
different. in their capabilities depending on what equipment they have and, you know, but things like maybe where we've said a catch basin needs immediate attention because the grate is loose, you know, maybe some blocking. Typically, most DPWs can do all those repairs themselves.
Okay.
You know, they've
So
got the
most
skills.
of this
and-
doesn't feel like, you
Well,
know.
but if the sidewalls are crashing in or collapsing, we're not very good at replacing catch bait.
Oh, yeah, that's a
If it
different
needs to be
problem.
totally rebuilt or something like that, that may be a different story. Again, every community is a little bit different.
Okay,
And I think we should bring Kyle into that conversation.
Yeah.
totally, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Good job.
Cool.
Can I ask a question or two?
Sure, Steve, go ahead.
I'm just wondering on this assessment that you've done, is there any negative impact in the future as additional housing stock is added to the community? I realize this is street stormwater drainage, but is that part of your thinking as new development occurs?
You know, a single house development doesn't have a significant impact to stormwater runoff, and any large development that came in would have to do its own assessment as it pertains to it, and as village engineers, if the village asked us to, we would review that on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
They're obligated by state regulations to control stormwater on their own site, so, you know, ideally, no is the answer to that question, but life's not always perfect, and so, you know, sometimes developments can make hydraulic changes.
You know, what's interesting is actually, as part of the comp plan process, there were a few times that people raised a question, especially about the streets that are closer to the village center, as to why we don't have more curbs. And part of the answer is because of this. We use the lack of curbs and sort of the space between the street and the sidewalk, that green space between the street and the sidewalk, as part of our drainage system. And so one question that like sort of shows up as, I don't know, business centers get a little bit more grown up and start putting in curbs, is like that actually impacts stormwater drainage more than new development.
I would think so.
Yeah,
You're
because
getting more
suddenly
water.
all of the water is now being,
Not going over it.
yeah, it's like being dammed into the road.
Right.
Which is a bummer, because curbs are useful in all sorts of reasons, but when you don't have a stormwater system that handles it, then.
My second question is, does Kyle with the DPW program now, are they cleaning the catch basins at all, or the manholes? Because I mean,
Yes,
I'm on Lorraine, and I think I saw that done maybe 7 to 8 years ago. Now, maybe I just missed it, but they're regularly going
we've been
out.
hitting, Steve, I'll be honest with you, we've been hitting trouble spots
Okay,
we need
and
to
stuff where we
operate.
know. What's important about this was we could get on a routine maintenance
right,
list,
okay,
and that's what's important. How do we needed a way to identify and get on a routine plan, so that we're doing 33% a year,
right, okay.
which we haven't been doing. But we typically catch basin, I mean,
Vacuum.
vacuum several every year.
Okay,
So there's two levels of it. The guys will come by, and if there's debris over a catch basin, they will come by and take care of the debris.
Yeah.
The vacuuming and the stuff, the jet blasting, we have to
Gotcha.
get additional equipment in for.
thank you.
Because we rent that equipment.
Yeah, we do,
Right, that-
it's a big truck, we run it, this year we rented it for a week. You know, is what we did.
Anything else, guys?
No.
Great, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is super helpful.
Is Joel there?
Glenn from Jewel is in the Teams meeting.
Okay,
Let me see if I can.
so we're gonna now pivot back to the CCA presentation, correct?
Yes. Can you hear me, Glenn?
Not coming out the aisle now.
A little more volume on the
Is there a volume on the owl? Just bear with
It's,
it.
it's not connected to the house.
Heard it.
It was.
Glenn, can you speak?
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really low, yeah.
How's that? Glenn, can you say hello? Test, test.
Testing, 1, 2.
Okay. Great.
It's always nice when technology works.
Yeah, how about that?
And big A.
Into full screen. All right.
Are you guys seeing my screen as well?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right, should I take it away? to Vanessa and to Martina for setting this up and coordinating, and thank you to the board for having us in. We responded, Jewel Assets, Jewel Community Power, we responded to the village's RFP for CCA Administrator, Community Choice Aggregation Administrator, and following our response, the village had some questions which we answered, and then we were asked to come here tonight just to give a brief presentation, but primarily I'm going to do my best to go quickly through that and address what I think some of the questions are, but really the primary goal for tonight is to get all of the board's questions answered so that you guys can make your decision on the RFP. So I'll just jump in here. I've got a few slides. Again, I'll do my best to sort of move through them quickly and leave as much time for questions as we can. So first, just a little bit about Jewel. We are a municipal clean energy and energy efficiency consultant here in New York State, as well as in other states as well. We're really founded with a very simple mission to help communities reach their sustainability and carbon reduction goals. We do that primarily through clean energy and energy efficiency programs. And really it's a very simple vision as well, clean energy for all, affordable clean energy to help communities, especially at the municipal level, make the transition from a fossil fuel based energy system to a renewable and efficient clean energy infrastructure. So a little bit about just sort of our footprint here in New York. We represent 58 cities, towns, and villages throughout New York State. We represent a bit over 800,000 New Yorkers, individual New Yorkers, and we facilitate the purchase of about 2 million megawatt hours a year of renewable energy. Just a little bit about CCA. I believe you guys are pretty well versed in community choice aggregation, but just very briefly, community choice aggregation is a policy. It's not just here in New York, but in many other states throughout the US. It's a policy that allows municipalities, in the case of New York, that's cities, towns, and villages, to determine the default energy offerings on behalf of their residents and small businesses. So in a typical case, the default energy supplier for any customer would be the distribution utility, in your case, Central Hudson Gas and Electric. However, the supply of electricity is actually a competitive market and has been a competitive market in New York for about 20 years. So any individual customer can choose their own energy supplier and where their energy comes from, including choosing renewable sources. What CCA allows the municipality to do is to select on behalf of all of their residents and small businesses a default energy supply, effectively transitioning a whole community to renewable energy, and doing so while also leveraging the buying power of all their residents at one time. If you or I were to individually shop for electricity on the competitive market, we would get a retail offer, right? Just the same way when you go shopping at the supermarket, you're getting retail offers from all of the distributors. The same thing in electricity. If you go shop for electricity on your own, you'll get a bunch of retail offers from competitive suppliers. If you shop at the municipal level, it's like shopping as a wholesale customer. So you will leverage that bulk buying power that you have as a whole community to get better deal, better terms, and better pricing for consumers, as well as being able to dictate not only the terms, but also the sourcing of the electricity. So it allows you to access renewable electricity here in New York State at a much greater scale than you could on your own. CCA is about 9 years old here in New York. We've seen some significant growth. There's about 160, last count, just over 160 CCA-enabled communities in New York State. That map, I think, is a little out of date. There should be more pins on there, but there's about 160, about 10% of all the municipalities in New York State are enabled to implement CCA. They've done that through local law, just as the village has. And we've seen growth over time. So the first program in New York State was here in Westchester County. I was actually the program director of that program for about 18 months at launch. That has since grown from 20 municipalities by just over 50% to 31 municipalities now participating. We've seen similar growth here in the Hudson Valley. We started with 10. We've grown to 14, and actually, the village is not the only community contemplating joining that group. So tonight, as we're talking here, the town of Olive is voting to join as well, that group in the Hudson Valley, managed by Jules, so that number could actually be 16 by the end of the night. And similar in the Orange and Rockland service territory across the river, we started with 6, and now that group has grown to 10. And this is really, this program and the growth of CCA in New York is really driven by or motivated by communities all across the state looking to transition to renewable energy and to make large impacts and to achieve carbon reduction goals ahead of schedule. And that schedule is not just a target here in New York, it's law. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the CLCPA, or the 2019 climate law here in New York. There's a mandate in that law of 70% renewable electricity statewide by 2030. We're inching towards 2030 faster and faster, it seems, and 100% carbon-free by 2040. CCA is a key policy driver implemented by New York State to help us get there. It allows not just sort of top-down mandates, but it really puts municipalities and communities in the driver's seat to fuel that transition from the grassroots up. We've also seen some really strong performance financially with these programs here in the Hudson Valley. So you can see that group in the blue, Putnam, Dutchess, and Ulster counties is the what we call the Hudson Valley Community Power Group. They're currently in a contract that ends in July, but the last contract that ended, not this year, but last year, saved an aggregate of $7 million in aggregate, average household savings around $300. Similar performance on the other side in Orange and Rockland territory. That last contract, they're now in another contract as well, but that last contract saved $10 million in aggregate and similar average household, and excuse the typo there in average, I apologize for that. Just a little bit about the process and sort of the approach that we take to the procurement process. So it's done through an RFP. We put out an RFP to the pre-qualified suppliers. So there's dozens and dozens of suppliers here in New York, but they have to go through a fairly rigorous qualification process in order to be able to bid on these types of, because CCA is a very specialized sort of program and it requires a certain level of experience and expertise and also certain balance sheet requirements. So there's a select few suppliers that are qualified to bid on CCA in New York. And when we do issue those RFPs, it's really a fairly straightforward evaluation process, but we're really looking at 4 distinct and key categories. First, of course, is price, right? So we're looking at who can offer the lowest price given the sources that we're asking for. So, for instance, New York State renewable energy. We're looking at terms, so we're also looking at the relationship between price and terms. So how can we optimize that price and also fix out the rate for as long as we can, so that we don't have to keep coming back and sort of renegotiating or rebidding this contract every few months. We like to look for contracts that are at least 12 months. Usually between 12 and 24 months is sort of the sweet spot that we like to look for with these programs. The product, of course, the source of the, so what Where is that electricity coming from? What can the supplier tell us about the source? What fuel type? Is it in-state? Is it out-of-state? That sort of thing. And last but certainly not least, the relative track record of the supplier themselves. We've worked with a number of suppliers on these programs. We know how they work. We know what their strengths are. We know what their weaknesses are. So when they come to the table with a bid, we certainly, in our recommendations that we'll ultimately make to you, we're certainly taking into account the relative strength, in our view, of the supplier themselves. Just really quick, we don't have to go through everything here on this slide, but and this is, of course, really important for council too, going forward, that the contract that anchors this program is what's called the ESA, the Electricity Supply Agreement. It's a tri-party agreement between the municipality, Jewel as the program manager or administrator, and the supplier. So that contract covers a number of different key responsibilities and obligations. The supplier's obligations to provide service and reliable delivery of the product. Jewel's responsibilities to ensure regulatory compliance, to manage all the customer enrollments, as well as the customer service and outreach, public outreach campaigns. And again, last but not least, to enforce the contract to make sure the supplier is living up to their obligations as well. The contract rests upon the municipal authority or home rule authority that you have established through your local law to implement a CCA, and as well as all the rights and your approvals, your right to approve various key milestones of the process as the municipality. And of course, it speaks to customer protections, proper handling of data, and all sorts of typical sort of legal terms, indemnifications, reps and warranties, termination, etc. We get this question a lot about sort of how do you know that the electricity that you're buying is renewable. It builds really on a number, and again, we don't have to dive into, though, if there are questions about any of this, I'm happy to go deeper on any of these, but it really rests on a number of different regulatory policies, institutions, systems, tracking systems that are in place here in New York State that ensure and are able to enforce and track the source of the nature of the power that is purchased by any customer. And in CCA, there's just an additional layer of enforcement and scrutiny that goes on. So that includes, NYSERDA policies, Public Service Commission policies. There's what's called NIGATS, which is a tracking system where all renewable power is entered and tracked and accounted for every year, and must be matched with what are called renewable energy certificates, or RECs you'll often hear. So if renewable power does not come with that REC, you can't claim it to be renewable power, even if it might be generated by a solar array or a hydropower plant. If it doesn't come with that renewable certificate, you cannot make a claim. There's some other customer that has that claim that owns that certificate. So all of this is run through the Public Service Commission environmental disclosure system, where all of this power is, again, accounted for and then ultimately published every year. So there are several ways that there are sort of checks and balances in order to ensure that the power that we're purchasing on your behalf is verifiably renewable. Just a little bit about sort of the service we provide as program administrator or manager. Really the backbone of these programs is in the community engagement, the public outreach and education campaign. It starts really from day one, but it's an ongoing, it never quite ends, right? There's an initial period, which is a 90-day period. It starts with a 60-day initial period that happens before the RFP is awarded, which is then immediately followed by another 30-day period, and then another 30-day period after that where folks can opt out if they like. These are all established by regulators to ensure that residents have as much information and have as much opportunity to ask questions, learn, and make a decision about whether or not they'd like to participate well before the program even launches. And thereafter, this is a key part of any CCA program, customers can opt out or cancel at any time with no penalty, no fees, no waiting period other than just how long it takes to effectuate the change with the utility. And they can also come back into the program at any time with no fees or extra charges whatsoever. So the CCA program is the default within the village. That means that if somebody moves in and sets up their service, they're going to get a letter that offers them to participate, and if they don't opt out actively, they're going to be enrolled. However, it's always just a choice, right? The municipality will be the ones that are making the decision to go ahead with this program, but the final decision always rests with the end user, with the homeowner or the small business owner themselves. That outreach period is really an all of the above strategy. We try to meet people where they are. We do in-person and hybrid community meetings. We engage local press and other forms of media, including social media, parent groups, local community groups on social media, and in-person meetings with community groups, homeowners associations. We leverage as best as we can the existing municipal resources, like your website, or maybe you have a newsletter or an e-blast that we could use to help get the word out, promote meetings that we might be having, info sessions, that sort of thing, put out information about the program and about the village's exploration of the program. We provide website content, and then ultimately every eligible customer in the village will get a letter mailed to their home or business which describes the program, describes their options, including, most importantly, their option to opt out should they not choose to participate. And then thereafter, we really are a permanent community resource. We maintain a helpline, both phone and email. That this is not an outsourced service that we pay some call center to do. This is our staff, our call center. We manage that. It's Jewel employees that run through all normal business hours, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We respond to emails, we answer phone calls, and throughout the life of the program, not just during that initial outreach period. So in our response, what we're proposing is that you really jump in with the existing Hudson Valley Community Power Program. That group of about a dozen municipalities is looking to renew their contract. Their contract runs through June. They'll be issuing an RFP at the early part of the year. The village can join that RFP, but you guys would have just a delayed start date of 1 month versus what they're going to start in July. Due to the regulatory protocol that you have to go through to stand up a program, you can start as early as August if you get going pretty quickly. So you can be part of that same RFP, you just start a month later. And I'll just talk through what that looks like from here. So if the village board authorizes Jewel as the CCA administrator here in December on this side of the new year, the first step would be to finalize the CCA administrator agreement and then have a kickoff meeting. And that would be a meeting, it's a working meeting that we would ask for directly after that. We finalize that agreement with whoever at the village will be working on this program. That could be staff, it could be elected official, it could be a committee member. It's really whoever you want to sort of act as the representative of the village for this program. And we go through a number of different process points, logistics, and also in timeline, and also start to get a sense from the village of what the key resources are and who we should be reaching out to, where we might be able to, where and when we might be able to have meetings, et cetera. Where we would notice a public information session properly to follow sort of the same process that you'd have for noticing your meetings, et cetera. In the new year, we'll start in earnest our public outreach and education. And the Hudson Valley RFP is going to go out to suppliers. The following month, we'll get the first pricing round for that group of municipalities. That's going to start in July. In March, that 60 days, that first 60 days that comes before you sign a contract will conclude. We'll do a second pricing round in that RFP, which would include the village of Rhinebeck for an August 25 start. You'd hopefully award the RFP, which would then kick off that second piece of that 90-day public outreach period, the 30-day post-award public outreach, which is similar. It's meetings, but at that point we'll know who the supplier is, what the price is, precisely what the source of the power is, et cetera. So we have more details. So when we do that post-award outreach, it's a similar format, but we do so with a little bit more of detail in hand. We'll have an opt-out period, and that's when all those letters will go out in June to every eligible customer in the village, and then we would process all of those enrollments in July, and in August we'd launch the program. I'm going to stop. I do have, I think, just one more slide, but I'm going to stop to see if there's questions there, because this is sort of a key slide for folks to understand.
I guess one of the questions I have is when we would, the price of green power has fluctuated a lot over the last couple of years. Sometimes it's been very favorable compared to what Central Hudson can deliver, sometimes unfavorable. When would we have a good sense for what kind of pricing we're looking at? And if the pricing comes in very high, do we have a chance in June as a village to say, you know what, the base prices here are just too high and we're going to wait?
Yes, but that decision would come in March. So you do not, everything you do between now and March is non-binding, right? So you engage us, we have to be hired in order to do our job, to do all of this outreach, to get data on your behalf, etc. But by hiring us, you've made no commitment whatsoever to actually go through with the contract in the end, right? All you're hiring us to do is to explore the viability of this program on your behalf, including engaging with your residents and getting feedback from them to see if it's something that they're interested in, right? But until that pricing comes back, and the first time we're going to get a really good sense of where that pricing sits is in February. We're going to have some indicative pricing, like very early on in the new year. We're going to request some indicative pricing just to see where we're at. But the first time we're going to get some really firm pricing is going to be February. And then we're going to get a refreshed pricing round in March. And that's when we're going to come to you for a decision. So we're going to come with hopefully a variety of different offers from a number of different suppliers. And we're going to come to you with recommendations, right? And I will say to your question, roughly about half the time, we make a recommendation not to award, right? So that might be because pricing is just too high. We think it's going to get a little bit lower if you wait. We think, you know, that there would be any number of reasons why we would make that recommendation. They're usually related to price, right? And most often what happens in those cases is just based on the data that we're seeing, the forwards in the energy market, something like that, we would come back and say, look, we're not seeing great pricing quite yet. Wait 60 days or wait 90 days, and we think that there might be a correction in the market, and we'll come back. And a lot of times that second time, will end up contracting. But it is the case that about half the time we issue an RFP, we get results that because it has to be a very compelling, renewable energy is of course a primary goal here, but the price has to be really compelling in order to make these programs work. And that's why we're able to realize savings in many of these contracts, is because we really take the time to make sure that we're jumping on the merry-go-round at the right moment. So that's an ongoing process, but that's what we'll look to do. We'll look to get it right the first time, of course. And that decision would come in March. But if at that time it's not right for you, despite our recommendation, if it's not right for you, you're not feeling it's low enough, or you think, you're not satisfied with the results, it's no harm, no foul. You're under no obligation. You can just make a decision not to move forward. And at that point, and there's no fees owed to Jewel or to anybody else. So all of this work that we do leading up to this is speculative on our part, but there's no cost to the municipality for anything.
And so it's through the awarding of the CCA RFP that would then set the rates and the kind of electricity that we're supplying, and then that would then trigger the beginning of the 30-day public outreach phase.
Exactly right. Yep, you got it.
So Glenn, this is all great information. If we were to say, this is great information, we need to still think about it, and we said we wanted to maybe put this on the agenda for January, does that slide the table out equally a month, or can we be on the same timetable if we made the decision in January versus December?
No, it would move the timeline, and it would jeopardize. I'd have to run, but it would jeopardize the ability to join the Hudson Valley group and be part of that same RFP. Now, that's not to say, so what I say here is that every municipality is really a sovereign nation here. So there's no you're under no obligation by joining a larger group. You get the benefit of the pricing, of the bulk volume of pricing. So it's quite a large group now in Hudson Valley, so they tend to do really well because when they work together. But each individual municipality still makes an individual decision about whether to go forward. They're under no obligation. There's no inter-municipal agreement or covenants that you're making to any other municipality. But that being said, if you sort of detach from that group, you're sort of on your own in terms of your ability to dictate pricing and that sort of thing. So we are planning a second RFP a little bit later in the year, which would include the city of Newburgh as distinct from this first group. But my recommendation is that if you can make a decision on this side of the new year, it's going to benefit just in terms of the ability to get a better price by being part of that first RFP. But of course, it's ultimately your decision.
So in the future, if we're looking to renew and the price is not favorable, has there ever been a gap time and then what happens in that gap time where there's no CCA price in effect?
Yes, it's happened, and what happens is those folks, so everybody that would be part of the program today is currently on Central Hudson's basic service. Now that's a fluctuating variable price, right? So every month it changes. It's unpredictable, month to month what that price is going to do. It's largely fossil based, but that's the standard offering from the utility. The CCA tends to be a fixed rate, right? So if it's a 24-month contract, it's the same rate every single month. But if there's no CCA contract in place because it's expired and there's no contract taking its place seamlessly from one to the next, all of those customers go back to the utility. They're right back where they started before the program launched. They go back on that utility basic service. There's no service interruption. Their lights won't go out. They don't see any interruption whatsoever, they'll just get their next bill, instead of having the CCA rate, we'll just have Central Hudson's basic rate on it.
So Glenn, give us an example of your current contract versus utility price today.
Yeah, so it does fluctuate a lot month to month. Central Hudson tends to post their rates right around the 10th or 12th of the month. I don't know if they posted their December number, but the CCA rate lately has been a little bit higher than the Central Hudson rate in most months, in recent months, because it is 100% renewable product that does tend to come at a premium. However, in 2022 and most of 2023, when electricity prices went quite high, the CCA, especially following the start of the Ukraine invasion, that's where we saw a lot of customer savings. The utility price, natural gas price went through the roof. Utility pricing tends to follow the natural gas markets. So while we had a stable fixed rate for renewable electricity, the market rate was shooting through the roof, and that's when we saw a lot of savings. Since then, the market has corrected a little bit. We've seen lower pricing in the last few months. But where it stands this precise month, well, I think we'll have to wait a day or two to get Central Hudson's new rate to answer that a little bit more precisely.
Well, but what is your rate today in the current contract?
It is, I can get that for you. Just give me 1 second. I don't want to misquote it. I'm just going to stop sharing for 1 second and grab that.
Glenn, just while you're looking, and I'm sorry if I'm about to distract you from doing something and making your brain explode, but as part of your outreach, do you sort of share like the trailing 12 to 24 month sort of comparison of?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we do. We're always sharing that. So I'm actually going to our program website right now to find this for you. So the current contract, the standard rate is 9.87 cents. The 100% renewable rate is 12 cents, just over 12 cents. And then there's a 50% renewable price as well that sits in the middle. So that's the current contract price. And that price will change, of course, relative to current market conditions when we go back out to bid in the new year.
Right, because that was my concern a little bit, because today we're seeing like 7 cents a kilowatt hour from utility, and I was aware that your rate was around 12 cents per kilowatt hour. So it was a significant increase if the contract stayed the same for our residential customers.
Yeah, no, it won't. Yeah, so it's always, the rate is always reflective of what the forward markets say electricity pricing will be over that same period. Now, it's very unpredictable. I'll just say that, right? So the forward markets are never exactly right? So sometimes they might be a little bit low, sometimes they might be a little bit high, certainly for a period of a month or 3 months, due to all sorts of things, weather, demand, things like geopolitical, impacts like wars and things like that. They can have really large impacts on what pricing does here, especially if you look at a particular month or group of a few months. Over time, however, what you'll see is, like, if you zoom out, you'll see that CCA pricing is extremely competitive with what market rates are, what utility pricing is, right? Again, sometimes a little bit lower. That last contract saved a lot of money. This current contract less so. But over time, it tends to be very comparable, and it does offer the opportunity, of course, for 100% renewable, which is something that Central Hudson is not permitted to offer.
And as who makes the decision if it's going to be 100% renewable, 50%? Is that at the individual consumer level, or is that at the village RFP level?
So the village makes the determination of which of those offerings. So right now we're offering 3: a standard offer, a 50% renewable, and a 100% renewable. The municipality makes the determination of which is going to be the default, right? So if folks don't do anything, don't take any proactive decision whatsoever, they will be automatically enrolled in the default product. However, the ultimate decision always falls to the end user, right? So they can choose proactively any of those 3 choices, or to opt out, right? If they're just perfectly happy with Central Hudson's service, they can opt out. Nothing ever happens to their account. They stay right where they are. They can do that. Usually about 10-15% of folks will opt out before the program starts. They can opt out any time thereafter for any reason whatsoever. They can come back at any time thereafter that and for any reason whatsoever. So it's really ultimately an additional choice. It's always the customer's choice, right? So the municipality is giving another choice, right? And what we see is that for renewable power, it's not always possible because of the premium paid for renewables still today. We hope that comes down in time as we transition more of our fleet to renewables. But renewables still comes at a premium here in New York State. And because of that, it's often difficult to stay exactly on par with where utility prices is for fossil fuel. However, if you compare CCA pricing to what individual customers could get shopping on their own for a similar product, say a 50% or renewable or a 100% New York State renewable product, CCAs tend to be usually in the neighborhood of about 15 or 25% lower. And that's really because, again, because of the volume that's created, the volume discount that's generated by having 12 or 15 municipalities work together on the same contract. Any other questions on this? I just have, I think, one other slide just to kind of reiterate the next steps from here. Obviously, we hope we're not the only ones, and you're in an RFP process, but we hope you select Jewel as your CCA administrator. If you do that, the next thing we do is we have that kickoff meeting. We get right into that public outreach campaign as early in the year as we could to keep you on pace with the rest of that group. And then we'd be issuing that RFP, and you'd be looking at, again, award in about March of 2025 for a start in August. And what that would mean is an outreach period that, again, starts in January and really runs through the spring and into the early summer as well. I just have my contact information here. I'll send you these slides, of course, as well. But any other questions, I'm happy to stay as long as you'd like.
So my concern is, and this is to the board, Glenn, not to you, is that this is the first I'm hearing that we're kind of under a deadline pressure. If we don't do it today, we miss the opportunity to get into the next pricing. I was not aware of that. So that's kind of a pressure point that I was not expecting for tonight, to have to be able to do that, because I thought this was going to be more of an informative issue and we could then still work on it and come back and think and maybe like put it on to January. But if you're telling me that if we wait till January, we miss the next RFP, that's all brand new news.
Yeah, understood. So again, that doesn't restrict your ability to go forward, of course, and there's always another RFP. But the timing of it, it's a really good opportunity to jump on. This is, a really big group in the Hudson Valley that's been working together since 2019. It includes the town. And so that's a good opportunity, just timing-wise. It is a crunch, of course. It's just the timing of the RFP, you know, vis-a-vis the timing of this contract. We did, we did include a prospective. We did in our proposal, in our response to the RFP, discuss the opportunity potentially to join that group and what that timeline would look like, though I understand that hearing it tonight is sort of like, you know, new news. But that, again, if you miss that window, okay, there's always a next one. But we did want to make you so that you do know, as you're making a decision, that there is a difference between now and a month or two from now, in that regard.
Thank you for the transparency on that, appreciate it.
Yeah.
When does the Newburgh RFP go out? August.
That I believe we're looking to issue in March.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Issue the RFP.
Issue the RFP in March, and so,
Issue the RFP in March, which would mean that we would likely award it in April, and we'd start in September.
okay, so we would just be
So
behind
it's not a
for
big
like a
difference
month or
in
two.
terms of timing, it just can be a fairly significant difference in because the volume in this first RFP is much larger than that second RFP.
so the second RFP is only with the city of Newburgh.
Got it. So
Right
there's,
now, it's just the city of Newburgh, and I believe the first RFP is 13 municipalities throughout the Hudson Valley, which includes the city of Poughkeepsie and Clinton and the town and Gardner and Saugerties and New Paltz and Phillipstown and Cold Spring. And so it's sort of all over the Hudson Valley, a group of, I believe, 13 municipalities.
right, and a much larger volume of customers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It
okay.
becomes a more competitive offering.
Yeah. Supply demand.
I
Okay,
don't know, my,
I think
This
we
was-
can choose whether or not we want to keep them on
Yeah.
the screen.
so Glenn, we can say thank you. I'm going to go back to the board, but unless the board has any more questions for Glenn.
No, thank you very much for your time, and thanks for
Thank you.
waiting for the first
Thank you.
presentation to complete.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me in, and please, if there's questions that come in the discussion after, just shoot me an email or give me a call. I'm happy to respond. Thank you.
No worries, thank you.
Thank you.
Gary, just a comment. You know, if you want a time to reflect on this, is it possible the village could ask for a special meeting in another week? I
Yeah,
know
we can, but we're in December, and
I realize that
that's complicated.
with schedules, but it could be a short meeting if you decide you want to get in on the bulk price before the end of December.
I'm going to leave it up to the board to see where we think we are. I mean, I was the opinion coming in here, I was going to gain more information. I didn't come in here prepared to make a decision today.
Mhm.
Right, 'cause
Okay.
I wanted to contemplate it, but now hearing
Okay.
the information,
Right, I understand.
I'm more open to thinking about this.
So we only received one response to the RFP.
And they are the only currently qualified
Okay,
administrator.
so if we're gonna do this at all, we have to do it with Jewel. And so I don't think the question is whether or not we're concerned about Jewel, the question is whether or not we're just interested in doing CCA at this particular
Timing.
moment. I mean, I don't see any reason to not say yes and then wait and see what the numbers look like in March.
Right, given what we heard tonight, because I didn't understand that the last
That was the major
presentation.
question that we had.
Right.
Yeah,
so-
and that's, that's information they provided, and now we know.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's-
And it gives us an opportunity in March to say no.
Yeah, Vanessa, do you have thoughts on this one? This is your baby.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I am also a little bit frustrated because I didn't realize it was like a hard deadline. I thought maybe if we vote on it in January, then we can jump on the train, even if it's
Yeah.
moving.
Right.
But given that information, I do think it is so much more compelling offer to join with 14 other municipalities, perhaps 15 others.
Oh, yeah, versus one.
Because what we're talking about, like, this is something, I'll speak for the board, but I think we all want to do this, we all want to have default renewable energy. It's really about pricing, we want it to be a compelling offer. We don't want to go out there to all the residents of the village and say, great news, you can have 100% renewables, but it's gonna cost you an arm and a leg. That's not a good look, right? So it's not doing anybody any favors,
I
so.
went through the whole process when the town did it because I was very interested in it, and they had actually examples that you could follow. And you have to realize that a large percent of your bill is actually for Central Hudson.
It's delivery.
It's
Yeah.
delivery, it's not, and so if you see the difference, I mean, I went home and at the time, for me, it was like $1 a month to be 100% renewable. And I certainly would be perfectly happy to pay that, but that would be everybody's individual, decision. But
Yeah.
maybe if people saw that, it wouldn't be as scary as just 12 cents.
I think this becomes part of the outreach, teaching people how to read their
I
bill,
agree.
that
That's-
really
Yes.
if a third of your bill is actually electricity price, and if that part of your bill goes up 15%, then it's only a 3% impact on your whole bill, right? That would be part of it. I would say,
All right, so
Okay.
we got a lot to do.
All right.
I'm gonna make a motion that we proceed with Jewel to sign on to start the process.
Second,
Discussion.
agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we just need to make sure that we stay on top of this in March.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Done, we're moving on.
All right, great.
We can talk all that.
Hour and a half in,
All right.
agenda item number 3. Let's do it.
Anybody bring pizza?
And, if we fill our mouths with pizza, we don't talk.
All right, next on the agenda, public comment. I think we wore everybody out. We're gonna move on. Okay. We're gonna move on to purchase requests. First thing on the purchase request is replacement for tile at the police department. Just to give a little bit of background on it, the building when it was built was put in with 12 by 12 tiles, similar to what you're seeing on this floor. Unfortunately, the mastic that was applied underneath the tile was insufficient, and that what's happened over the course of time, literally the whole building, all the tiles are now floating and coming loose. So it's created a place that's kind of difficult to work through because the tiles are slipping out from underneath you at all times. So we basically had 3 vendors come in and previewed all 3 of them, and all 3 came back with a price quote. I'm just going to cut to the chase here because working with our police department, I'm going to make a recommendation based on what we've seen, what we've observed, to go with not quite the lowest, but the second lowest, which is Foster Flooring out of Statsburg for a total price of $19,170.01.
By the way, Foster is actually the cheapest because that 19,000 includes sales tax, and so it's actually 17,000.
I see that, you're right. I didn't see that before, thank you. So it's actually better.
Yeah.
So we don't pay sales
sorry,
tax.
what is it without the tax?
17,729.49.
Yeah,
That's for who?
Foster Flooring
Foster Flooring.
in Stottsburg. They're really nice down there.
So what were the other, there was.
The other 2, they're out on the cloud.
Rosendale and Northern
Rosendale.
Dutchess Hardwood.
Oh, okay.
Rosendale was 18,000 and change, and Northern Dutchess Hardwood was just a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
over 23,000.
I have a second.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Can I just make a recommendation that you transfer the funds from the New York class FEMA to the police equipment line item for that purchase?
So amended.
Whoa, hold on.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
To what, please?
For $17,729.
Who seconded?
I did.
772049.
17,729.49. Did you get that? Okay, great.
Okay. Martina, as soon as you're ready, I'm going to turn the next one over to you because you've been doing all the work on this. Just so everybody's aware, our current cleaner for Village Hall has had better opportunities, and I'm so thankful for her to take on more responsibility within the National Guard and serve our country. So she has done a great job for us, and I'm thanking her for her service, but we need to have cleaning here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Martina.
Yes, so our current cleaner, she will be cleaning throughout the remainder of December, but starting in January, we will need a new cleaner. I reached out to 4 different people. I received quotes from 2. They're both on the cloud. One of them, Jessica Simpson, she is licensed, doesn't have her own insurance, but could do a hold harmless like our previous cleaner did. She wants $300 a week, which is $1,300 a month. She does come highly recommended. She does do good work. It's just her. The other quote came from our current cleaner for the police department, Supersonic Cleaning. He has cleaned for us before. Also does good work. He is licensed and insured, and he proposed $1,100 a month.
With an initial cleaning price of 500.
Yes.
So
So
the
that,
proposed,
I will say that happens sometimes with Wilfred. He kind of adds in some hidden fees.
so this includes the 500, or could we just say we don't want the initial clean?
He's cleaned for us for interim periods and has always applied that initial cleaning. And he currently does do the police department. Choice is yours, but I personally like Jessica, based off of the reviews and work that she's done.
I personally think it's fair for that initial cleaning. You want to get the building into where you can come in and do it.
Yeah.
Right? If you skip that, you're just going to be paying more. I have no problem with the initial cleaning aspect of it. It kind of sets the stage to make it more efficient going forward.
Well, and in comparison to, if we sort of compare apples and apples, like that initial cleaning is earned out within the first couple of months. Between the 2 different cleaners.
It'd take 5 months because it's a $500.
Well, it's 1,100 versus 1,300.
Well, I
Well,
thought she was 1,200.
She was 300 a week, and sometimes there's a 5 weeks in a month.
Or 2.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
So it was 15.
Keep that in your head.
I'd like to make a motion to accept
Are we sort of obligated to take?
Supersonic Cleaning Services.
Are we obligated to take the lower price?
We are not.
Okay.
We can take a recommended bid. We're not obligated. Our purchasing agreement does not clarify, does not state that.
The police department is happy with Supersonic?
I made a motion, hang
Recommendation to go with
on.
Jessica.
I made a motion, can I have a second, and then we go into discussion?
Second.
Rick, second, okay, now.
Okay. Yeah, my question is, they come recommended by the police department?
Yes and no. He doesn't do a terrible job, but based off of reviews from both cleaners, the recommendation would be Jessica.
Okay.
You said the recommendation would be Jessica?
Jessica.
Yeah.
And you made a motion for Supersonic?
Yeah, we can turn it up. So let's have a discussion, I mean.
Can we trial Jessica? Is that okay? I mean, she's not, she's.
Yeah, so that's the other
she's
thing is that
weekly.
Wilson, I believe, has a contract, Wilfred, I should say, has, I don't remember what his contract states. She doesn't have a time period.
She's week to week.
So you could give her a probationary period and go from there. Wilfred will always be available and around. He, again, currently cleans for the police department, and he has filled in for us before.
The term of this agreement shall be for 1 year and shall automatically renew and may be terminated or canceled at any time with a minimum of 30 days written notice from either party. That's Supersonic.
All right, Jessica's just basically a handshake.
Is she local?
Yes. Where does she live? Pine Plains.
Right on to Addison.
I didn't ask if she was pregnant.
Since I see a lot of dust.
We're currently paying $800 a month, just
Right.
for your perspective.
Okay.
So either way, this is one. Either 900 on,
I'm surprised that he put it at 1,100 because when he cleaned for us temporarily before, when our current cleaner was out on orders, he charged $1,250 for that.
And with both persons, we supply the cleaning supplies.
Yes.
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 Including like the hardware, or leaving no hardware?
We have mops and a vacuum and
Okay.
dusters and things of that sort.
I like the idea of giving Jessica a shot.
So do I. I think we need a pretty good reason though for taking the non-minimum, not the lowest bid. So if we can articulate that in some way, other than,
Let's put it this way, the police department is not dropping Supersonic.
right,
They're keeping him as their cleaning service.
I
Okay.
think his contract lays out specifically what he'll do.
Yeah.
And the comparison could be that,
she'll do more.
yes.
I like Rick's idea of let's
Give her a shot.
test this out.
I like it, it's a woman-owned business.
Can we do a 3-month?
Yeah, we can do a probationary period.
Can we, I mean, will the price change? Can we ask I'm gonna rescind the motion to,
Well, do you want to just vote nay and then have a new?
all in favor for Supersonic, say aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, yes. I'd like to make a motion to use the other supplier, Jessica, on a 3-month probationary period to try it out.
Second, beginning January 1st.
Right. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Done, thank you.
Great.
Karen, you ready?
Mm-hmm. Okay, the financial report is for the period ending November 30th. The general fund ended the month with $43,535.06. The water fund ended the month with $107,023.29. And the sewer fund ended the month with $121,882.82. Vouchers presented for payment, quite high this month. The general fund totals $489,563.85, of which our annual retirement payment and the new truck payment is in there. Water fund total $82,170.77. Sewer, $51,523.28. Escrow totals $5,931. The compost facility, $3,670. Water plant improvement project, $8,985.25. And the wastewater treatment plant upgrade, $14,290.04.
Wow.
Do you want to approve the vouchers?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the vouchers as presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Did we sell that truck?
Yes, we did.
Oh, good. So they showed up before today with,
No,
Well,
we
no.
received their written intent to purchase. They have not come yet. I've been in communication with them. They're looking at the end of the week to come in and get the check and get the bill of sale and the title.
okay.
All right, monthly operating. The monthly operating statement is provided with revenue and expenditures through December 10th. The tax assessment reduction after a court order settlement, a refund in the amount of $1,385.57 was issued, and the 24-25 tax assessment roll was reduced by $545,500 assessed value.
One property?
There's like 3 of them.
Oh, okay. I was about to say.
Same owner.
Oh.
Good lawyer.
A list of delinquent taxes in the amount of $55,498.70 was sent to Dutchess County for re-levy, and usually April 1st, we get made whole on that.
Does the county keep a portion of that for being, because they fund us
They put their additional penalty on it.
onto back to home, on taxes.
So we don't.
We don't pay anymore.
No,
We don't.
correct.
Oh, for the homeowner.
Mid-year, December marks mid-year for the village's fiscal year. I will soon be working with the department heads on their budgets, as well as preparing a 6-month report for the January meeting. The 25-26 budget season is coming up.
Never stops.
We're looking to scheduling these department head meetings in February and March. Highway, planning, zoning, and building, police and court, water and sewer, environmental, fire, and general. This year, I recommend a separate meeting to discuss equipment, all grants, and capital projects current and proposed. Water and sewer, December monthly bills went out for the water, $27,659.65. $35,885.47 in the sewer. Those are due December 27th. Adjustments were signed off by Mayor Bassett and presented for approval.
I can make a motion to approve.
Second?
Discussion?
What she said.
Water and sewer adjustments.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. And then just, I had one budget amendment, so I just put it right on this form here, just to increase the 5110, the streets drainage line item, and reduce the parks drainage line item, just since we have 3 task orders, so that they're all just going into one place.
So moved.
So they're all being charged out of the 5110 drainage.
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. That's it.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, we're going to move into resolutions. The first one on the docket is to accept the HVAC bid that went out for bid. We opened the bids on December, whatever date.
Last meeting?
What?
No, you opened the bids, December 2nd, 3rd?
Third.
3rd, December 3rd.
We got 2 bids, one from JF Management, one from Sigmund Tremblay. They've both been sent to our engineering to be evaluated. Their response was the village should review the cost proposal versus the proposed scope of the work and the RFP provided to the bidders and award the lowest responsible bidder. In this case, the lowest responsible bidder was the quote received from Sigmund Tremblay. Combined, it's broken down into each segment in terms of the RFP of what we had asked for. I don't have, it basically totals up to 57,000 and change, right?
Yeah, 58.
58,000.
What's the exact number?
There you go.
58777.
Thank you.
Right.
Do we get to keep that extra $1,200?
Yeah.
No. Sorry.
The other bid from JF Management was really was lacking a lot of detail, as recognized by our tie and bond, and it totaled. Let me open this up here. When I open that one, Martina, it comes up with the same one.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah, you have to try it a couple times, it happened to me too.
79,250.
There we go. Yeah, I got it.
100 more.
Yeah.
250. 79,250.
Given the fact that it lacked the detail in terms of what we were getting for $79,000 and was insufficient in outlining what was to be presented, I meant to make a motion to accept the bid from Sigmund Tremblay for $58,000.
777.
Second.
Discussion.
Just curious about how long will it take to pay for that, kind of pay for itself? I mean, I know we have grants for it, but how long would it take for the savings to?
You'd have to calculate the gas prices that were out over the period of time.
No, I get it, but I'm just, there should be some way to estimate it, right?
I don't know.
I don't
know the
have
answer to
that. No, I'm just curious. I just think it'd be helpful.
It's sort of interesting, just looking at these 2 bids. I don't know the ownership structure of Sigmund Tremblay or anything, but it seems like the ownership structure of the other one is a minority-owned business, and it's just kind of a bummer that some of these, government procurement contracts sometimes.
Did you, let me go
I
back.
don't know,
He gave a front-end cover page that talked about the whole business. Is that not included? I don't know if that's in with it.
It did say that if we wanted more detail, it would be provided.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about, I mean, like, it's fine, like, I totally get it. It's just that sometimes when I'm looking
I
at
want to
someone's
answer your question directly, because in his proposal,
in signature place.
there was a full page of the business,
Oh, yeah, I don't see that. That's okay.
I think that's-
which we can share with you. I just don't have it at my,
Okay, yeah, that'd be nice.
was it there?
There's-
I don't see,
No, it's not, but that's okay.
that front cover page is not included.
Okay.
All right. One of the other distinguished features, he did offer a 1-year service warranty on it, which the other company did not
Oh, well, that's helpful.
as well.
And it looks like what, Carrier is the system that they're using?
Yes, that's the equipment.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good, thank you.
Can I just make a recommendation? Vanessa and I spoke about this, that we transfer 50,000 from the New York class into that, and then when we get our reimbursement, we reimburse it back, just so we have the working
Cash
capital
flow.
in that account.
Good idea.
Sorry, from which one?
From the
New York class FEMA
New York class general to, I set up an account, like a bank account for this police station, so.
And we already have the 10,000.
From NYSERDA that's in there.
Yeah.
Right, that, we received that and I
Yeah.
put that in there, so this would be.
That's a good idea.
So we make.
Would this be from
Yeah.
just like the New York class investment account or from the New
Yes.
York class FEMA account?
Either one, they're both.
Well, no, because the FEMA account, I have plans for.
Okay, well, then the regular one.
Okay, great. Let's do
You're gonna get the
that.
money back.
I know, but you know.
Oh, yeah, no, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter? Okay, great. So let's just do the general one.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we transfer 50,000 from the New York class
General.
general account to the account that Karen has made for this project.
Got it.
Second.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Done. Great. Rick, you're up.
Well done,
Okay.
Vanessa.
We're about to step through an important gateway in our TAP project, Safe Routes to School project, this is the inauguration of Phase 1. And Phase 1 is basically initial design and right-of-way acquisition. And the cost of this phase total is $415,000. And what the state requires is that we are good for the money. This is a reimbursement grant, so we have to put out the money first and then submit for reimbursement for the grants. It is a 20% match, so at the end of the day, we will be paying $83,000 we are on the hook for at the end of the day.
For phase one?
For Phase 1.
Okay.
So what we have here basically is a resolution telling the project management that yes, we have agreed and we've set aside $415,000 to do this. In speaking with Karen, what we decided was it would be a good idea to take the 415 from the New York class general fund and distribute or give it to a dedicated bank account for this project. Basically, it's to create working capital for the project. The New York class account right now has about $1.5 million in it, so we're taking $415,000 out of it. And depending upon what we decide to do, obviously we'll be reimbursed for
332,000.
Thank
Go
you.
back into New York class.
back into class. And then we will have another decision point when Phase 2 starts. Because then,
About the ban.
yeah, then we're talking about the other $1.2 million that we would need to fund the project. And the question is, how we're going to do that? It turns out these grants are also structured such that any cost overruns we eat. So we may find out if we get started, we're locked in. If we find out that there's some other drainage work or something that we want to be doing at the same time, we may want to add that to our ban and to our
Is the
supplement.
sidewalk supposed to go over that little like mess of drainage that we just learned about?
Yeah, it does cross that area.
Where does the cost of the consultant come out? When is that?
They bill, well, it's an engineering firm, and they have not started billing us yet. Once they begin work, they will start billing
It's
us.
based on
So
a
that's-
percentage.
And that's built into the
So like in
total
the
fee structure.
415,000, they're going to get a certain percent?
Yes, and that's all in the contracts, and it's all set by the state, all those percentages and all that kind of
Any
stuff.
idea roughly? how
I'm not, off the top of my head, no, but it's all in the documentation. Basically, there's an enormous structure of fees, proposals, schedules. The consultant, New York State pre-vets all the consultants, so that you can only use a consultant that's been pre-vetted by New York State, and they have to submit a schedule of their fees, which is acceptable to the state, which has already been done. The state does cap certain fees to certain percentages that they can charge. So it's all built into the formula of the grant itself.
Not a lot of choice, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And they've been doing, so far, the situation is, so far, they've basically been doing this work on spec. Because
Right.
any costs that we suffer prior to the awarding, the final awarding of this grant would be on us. So technically, we have spent no money so far to get to this point in the process.
Pretty
And
good,
then-
because probably that grant application cost them at least $50,000 to generate.
Yeah, so, and they do that, that's how they
Yeah.
work, right? They work on the spec, and then they understand that they will basically make it out on the back end. So, that's where that stands. So I would like to make a motion to, pass the resolution.
Second,
Okay.
discussion?
The resolution doesn't include,
No, we're gonna do that
We'll
next.
we'll do a second.
okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Next
I'd like to make a resolution to transfer $415,000.
Sidewalks,
Yeah,
yay!
really, from our New York Class General Fund account to the established account at M&T Bank, Safe Routes, Village of Rhinebeck, Safe Routes to School.
Second, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, Karen, for.
It's the only way we can get started.
Good.
Thank you, Karen. The advantage of getting all of your tax revenue at the beginning of the year.
Okay,
This is me.
you're up, Lydia.
This is basically hiring Four Corners Planning, which is otherwise known as Michelle Gregg, to start working on our zoning code update as reflected in the comp plan. This is kind of the first step to the next set of steps as it relates to the comp plan implementation. And I have it all in the resolution. I don't think I need to read it, but,
I think it's important to say that we have the money already set aside to
oh,
cover-
yes, we budgeted, okay, yes, I will say this part. The village board, expecting the recommendation from the comp plan to update our zoning code, applied for the New York State Smart Growth Program Community Planning and Zoning Grant Program on July 28th for $148,500. The announcement of the award of these grants is usually announced at the end of December each year. The village board's 2024-2025 budget currently holds approximately $75,000 for this purpose. Michelle believes that if we can do this efficiently, the entire process should cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $160,000. That grant is not for $160,000 because we have to submit, it's a match. Her portion of that is about $105,000. Obviously, it wouldn't all be spent in 1 year, especially if we don't get the grant. Everything will have to slow down a little bit and probably, frankly, get a little bit more expensive. But hopefully we will get the grant. And we won't have to worry about it. But in the meantime, we do have $75,000 set aside for this purpose. And actually,
In the comp plan line.
in the comp plan line item, it's actually about $77,000 at the moment.
So that was a motion, I second.
Yes, that was a motion. The motion's in the resolution, but yes.
The motion is to accept the resolution.
Yes, the motion is to accept the resolution.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any discussion? I just going to say, we got to get started. And the sooner we can get started on this part, the better.
Working on it, man.
I know you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Rick, you're up.
Okay, so we have in front of us, I'm going to make a request to ask for the board to pass resolutions to Gary to sign this MOA, Memorandum of Understanding. Basically, this Memorandum of Understanding is between us and New York State DOT, and it does two things. This is regarding the replacement of the bridge over the Landsman at Route 9. So I've been working with the DOT board as a historian, has been working with the DOT to try to come up with a plan for the replacement bridge that is at least historically sensitive to what we had. Years and years ago, Colonel Astor dedicated a bridge there back in 1911, as I recall. That bridge doesn't exist anymore, but it was a bit of a to-do and it had some historical significance. And working with the DOT, at least we can bring back some echoes of that bridge, some of the lighting, some similar design features.
Well, actually, it looked much nicer than the current bridge.
It will look much nicer than the current, which is a cool word. And the second part of that is that...
It's larger than the current bridge, too.
It was much larger than the current bridge.
Yeah.
The second part of that is that there was a set of railings which dated to 1898, I believe, built by the Croton Iron Works. And they were on the little pedestrian bridge that was next to the larger bridge. And they survived there for well over 100 years until about 2 years ago when somebody unfortunately had a medical emergency in their vehicle and wound up crashing into the gates and the railings, and wound up mangling the railings. So working with SHPO, the State Historic Office of Preservation, they asked DOT if, hey, would you please repair the railings and set them up somewhere nearby. And the idea is that these were contributing historical structures. DOT agreed to do that. And they have put forth a very preliminary plan to display the railings and a little interpretive sign at the entrance to the park, basically where the sidewalk that leads up to the World War I Memorial intersects the sidewalk along Route 9.
We put this up.
If we just put it down, just give the background.
Same drawing.
Same drawing.
Okay.
And so basically the MOA says that we've worked with them to hopefully do a historically sensitive replacement bridge, and that they will work with us. They will come up with a design and then consult with us as to how we'd like to display the railings. So I'd like to make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign this MOA.
Second.
Discussion.
I'm fine with the bridge part, but I think that we, when we passed the first part, and it was just, I guess you said it was a concept map, and now it sounds more like we're kind of relinquishing any input on what it's going to look like, so.
Not at all, not at all. Matter of fact, if you look at it, it says they will bring forth a plan and it will be submitted to SHPO and the Village of Rhinebeck for review. So we are in the loop.
We're waiting for comments, no less.
Yeah. And the other thing to say about this is that the state office, SHPO.
State Historic Preservation Office.
Thank you. I always want to say officer. SHPO had a couple of concerns that they wanted to have met, one of which was that they were actually very impressed with our World War I Memorial, and they really wanted to make sure that the integrity of that area was maintained. But they also wanted to have the railings someplace close to their original location. Like, they didn't want us to stick them up here by Village Hall or something like that. They wanted them somewhere
Near the bridge.
Near the bridge. So this, at least as a working place, seems to be the best place to do this.
Okay. And so when we get an actual design, everybody who wants to comment can comment?
Correct.
Okay, great.
Correct. And the language for the sign.
Oh, right, yes.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Eleanor, you're up.
Appointments to the Parks Committee. Thank you very much, Vanessa, for helping me do the interviews. I have recommendations. I'm not going to speak long because time is of essence here. I have a recommendation so I have somebody who's the president of the PTSO, we have somebody who's a Lions Club member, we have somebody who's been on several parks committees here, the Thompson Mazzarella, and I guess we had a parks committee in the past, he served on that. We have somebody who co-founded Beck Up Pride, and we have somebody who lives practically in the Legion Park. So I'm recommending Michelle Duval for a 3-year term, Roger Kwan for a 3-year term, Howie Trout for a 2-year term, Debbie Heck for a 2-year term, and Paul Higgins for a 1-year term.
I don't remember what.
Okay,
Oh,
second.
sorry.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Now you go. Discussion.
Does the original resolution created the committee talk to this, but we usually do all of our appointments for our committees in effective April 1st. If we're appointing them today,
We can reappoint them at the.
That's not true of individual committee members. That organizational list is for like chairs and,
no, but we do, okay, I'll rephrase. The ZBA and the planning board are appointed as of April 1st.
correct, that's entirely different from this committee.
Oh, okay, so
Board
this,
versus committee.
Yeah,
so,
that's a board.
okay,
But also those board members aren't necessarily, the chair is appointed on April 1st,
No,
not
they're-
individual board members.
yeah, they're all appointed on April 1st.
They are
No,
not,
not on the
they are
organizational
not on
chart.
our organizational list.
Okay, well, their terms expire on April 1st.
Correct.
Their terms do, yes.
Yeah.
And if there's a new one, then we appoint them.
And we usually appoint them in March, effective April 1st.
Correct,
That's
if there's
when
a,
terms
if there's a
expire.
term expiration, yes.
Okay, so my question is, are all of these terms going to expire on December 10th of every year? Or are they all going to expire on like March 30th of every year? Like some of our other,
That is really good. It was interesting that there's terms for this, because generally committees don't have terms.
Right.
It's usually saved for boards.
right?
We've never had a committee with terms before.
So maybe if we, now that we have a committee with terms, because I remember we did have that in the resolution, the original resolution. The question here is, do we want to have these terms be effective December 10th, or do we want to sort of shove them into the terms for most of our other committees that have terms?
It may be easy, I mean, I would like to just get started because
Yeah.
there are things that we. can
Yeah, so
actually
maybe
do.
this is like,
So
you know,
maybe we could, but I think it would be easier to remember if we,
that's more the point of my story, is instead of having one committee be on a December cycle
Yeah.
and all the other
Yeah,
ones on
just set them
a.
to
So that's also
expire.
not entirely true. Our ethics board doesn't run on April 1st either. So we do have other boards that have different dates.
Okay.
so what about the tree commission, how does that?
We're
Yeah, that's a commission,
we're
not a
commission.
committee. So
Commission,
they're a
not a
little bit
committee.
different, but I'm actually not sure what their dates are, but to answer that question, not every board or commission is
Okay.
April 1st.
Do you keep track of that?
Yes. I don't keep track of it. I have a master list of it.
Okay, so I guess this is every December,
So,
we're gonna
Why
be making.
why can't we just make it January 1st to make it simple?
Oh, why don't we do that?
Or-
And you guys obviously can
Yeah,
meet
we're not going to
beforehand
meet
if you
in
want to.
December, no, we want to get going in January.
Right, yeah.
Why don't we make it,
All right, why don't we make it January
I'd like
1st?
to amend to make the terms
Effective January.
effective January 1st.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Have fun.
Okay, last resolution, New York State Fighter Cancer Benefit Program. This is a program we started, the state mandated 3 years ago, I think, and this is a renewal for that program. We are currently enrolled in the enhanced program, which is, both of them consist of two components. A lump sum cancer benefit and death benefit and a long-term disability. The difference between the two, the basic plan is $3,130.36 per member, and this is based on, not per member, this is the annual rate is $35.06, and our term for our firefighters, $3,130.36, correction here. The enhanced plan, which covers obviously more, the annual rate per firefighter is $40.82, so our liability is $4,007.16. which is a plan we've been enrolled in. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the enhanced plan for our New York State Volunteer Firefighter Cancer Benefit Program.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. That's really the big end of the business here. We're going to move on. Next is just a quick update on the current projects. I'm very pleased to announce that after a long duration of many, many months, the Department of Health has finally approved our water department engineering design. This is a big step forward for us because we're waiting for bids to come in. I forget the date.
Right.
Sometime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry I'm drawing a date, but it was, we were all in a conundrum because we were worried that this wouldn't happen until after we got the bids. The fact that this happened before the bids makes it what's going to come in with the bids will coincide with what we designed, and everything kind of works together. Right? So this is really, really, really good news for us for our design process. So I'd like to make them, there's no motion required, this is just information to say that click another notch off the belt, we're moving forward. Right?
It's exciting.
Great.
It was a bummer, the notification today.
Well, yeah, if you want to get into it, we received notification today that our wastewater treatment plant that we applied for a grant for in round, this is the third time I think we've applied, and we've now been denied 3 times. But just as a reminder, we have a loan from EFC, which we are already drawing on, which will soon convert to long-term debt. And we're just going to keep hammering at this one. Hopefully that maybe someday we'll get to the top and get our wastewater treatment plant a grant from there as well.
Does Delaware do a grant review?
We're going to reach out to them and ask for assistance, yes.
Okay, great. Like a postmortem?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I submitted to the board our climate adaptation plan. So this is the project that I've been working on with a couple volunteers for almost a year now. And it builds on previous research that we had done starting in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID kind of interrupted that for a bit. So what I'm putting to the board is I would love for us to vote to adopt this at the January meeting. But first I want to get it up in the cloud for the public to see and for your comments. You know, there's a lot packed into this document. There's a lot of background, research, methodology. I would really ask you to focus your attention on the recommendations section. A lot of the recommendations are not going to surprise you. In fact, you know, we saw a presentation about the stormwater, you know, drainage mapping. These are things, a lot of this stuff is stuff we already talk about, projects, some of them are underway. What this plan tries to do is pull all those pieces together and put in the context of climate change and how we're going to adapt to the impacts, specifically sea level rise on the Hudson River, localized flooding and increasingly intense storms, and heat emergencies and drought. And putting it all in context in one place helps us wrap our head around it, and then trying to assign orders of priority and timelines. And again, I just want to let everybody know, this plan doesn't mean that we the board are legally bound to do all of these projects, but I feel strongly that what we should be doing is putting a stake in the ground and saying, this is our goal, this is what we want to achieve, if we can align all those stars and get funding and all that. So I appreciate you guys taking some time in the document over the holidays.
When we vote on it, are you looking to have like short-term, long-term, short-term, medium-term, long-term, or something?
There's a timeline assigned to each one of the major issues in here.
Yes.
And even though the time, as Vanessa said, the timeline doesn't lock us into
No, I
a
get
commitment
that.
to do it. The timeline is a goal because I think what's important about this, in addition to all the work that was put forward by the committees and discussing it, it really aligns with the goals we've been talking about for 2 years now or more on a lot of things. And the timing is good because it gives us kind of a roadmap as we start getting into our budget cycle to start thinking about some of the things that we can do. So the timing is important to get us into that mindset to say, if we were to tackle one of these and we have money in the budget or we want to put money aside, where should we put that? And this is a great roadmap to give us that
I'm just kind
direction.
of asking.
I work very closely, I'm not done yet, I'm sorry. I work very closely with Vanessa on trying to align these timing of these events based on where we think they can align best with going forward as a municipality.
Yeah, I wanted to just thank Gary for sitting down with me and going through line by line each of these recommendations. Really appreciate that.
Oh, great stuff.
And if you look at, Eleanor, if you look at like page 40,
Yeah, I've been looking at it.
page 43, yeah, page 43, you have, I pulled together all the different, it's not every individual action, but kind of like each section of the plan. And there you can kind of see how they're prioritized. We're looking at the time frame of 2025 to 2030. So you can kind of see how we move through that timeline.
But I'm just asking, so you don't want our comments on how to prioritize, like if we think something might be.
That's my plan. You can, but I think we're gonna
Yeah,
get
sure.
into that in our budget cycle. Because you can say, well, this doesn't really map where we're going and we can change the timeline then. Because it's really about, it's all driven by money.
No,
A lot of
that's exactly
things.
my
So-
point, exactly.
Yeah.
So I would
Yeah.
appreciate those, but I think the timing for that is as we go through it and look at them as part of our planning process.
Right, I would say that the order of priorities here are more based on what we felt was the most urgent and important.
Correct.
Not necessarily like the lower hanging fruit.
Right.
That we might be able to just tick off there sooner rather than later. Yeah, so comments, all of that I think is, and I can also include, you know, if you want to write something up, I can include that in the conclusion or in the section that's about implementation and monitoring of the plan. It does recommend that the plan be like revisited and kind of like redone, you know, every 7 years or before 2030, if possible.
Is the goal to have all, I don't know how many of these there are, 17, 16, complete by 2030? Is that the goal?
If possible.
Yeah, I don't know.
In
So,
an ideal
yeah.
world,
So definitely, like, we're gonna have to pay attention to this report, you know, every budget cycle, just kind of.
Yeah.
yeah, that's the idea is, and I mean, new stuff can occur, you know, like one of the things I have in here is fire, you know, because that's becoming more of a real, when we started, just anecdote and then I'll be done, but when we started this work in 2020, some community members said, well, what about forest fire? And I was kind of like,
What
I
is
don't
happening
think
here?
that's happening here. And now,
We've had two.
while I was drafting this report, there are forest fires in Red Hook. And so, you know, I can't say new threats won't emerge. You just have to stay tuned.
Welcome to climate change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vanessa. All right, I'd like to make a motion to cancel our December 24th meeting, unless, you guys want to come on the 24th?
Second.
You gonna be here?
All in favor, do I have a second?
Yes.
Yeah, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Done.
What am I gonna do?
I don't know.
On the 24th of December, what would
We
you
could have a big
what could you
snowball
do-
fight.
What could you do on the midnight on the 24th of December?
Go look for Santa Claus. All right, use of Village Hall.
Nora.
Spend the use special requests. This is Connecting Caregivers of the Comic Loss by Erica Murphy, who runs a program along with Rotary, wants to request a date for February 12, 2025 on Wednesday from 12:45 to 2:45 2:45 for lunch, sing along, and photos of weddings and discussion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Vanessa, I'm gonna let you take the next one.
Yep. So we're getting really close to launching the new municipal composting program. And we're anticipating that the dumpster where people will be dumping their food scraps will be deposited in the municipal parking lot by January 1st.
Do we have an update from them at all?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, the dumpster is coming.
Good.
But we're gonna keep it at the farm until we're ready to place it in the municipal parking lot. And then what we'd like to do is a ceremonial ribbon cutting of the dumpster. Hopefully Gary can borrow the Chamber of Commerce big,
Enormous
big scissors.
Is it biodegradable or?
We need to, yeah, we should, maybe it should be.
I'm gonna throw some food scraps in it, that's what
Right,
I'm gonna do.
and we'll invite folks to come with their buckets of their inaugural food scraps. And just have kind of a photo op, because this has just been such a long time coming, we want to celebrate a little bit. I did talk to Pete, he gave the thumbs up. I'm gonna talk to Kyle, because I think we'd like to block off a few of the parking spaces right by the dumpster, so we just have a little room together. So this will be January 12th.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the event.
Second. Discussion?
It's great.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, very good.
Thank you.
So close, Vanessa. So
All right,
close.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from 11/12/24.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from 11/26/24.
I have to abstain.
Second.
Discussion?
Just a question, because I got knocked off, should I vote or not? I mean, I looked through them, what I,
You were at the meeting.
yeah,
It
well,
was virtual, so you're fine.
Yeah, well, I just got knocked off.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'd like to make a motion to approve December 2nd, 24,
Second.
special meeting.
Not
Three of
present.
us, three.
Not
Sorry.
present.
Right, we'll get that. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye, Rick.
Abstain?
I abstain.
Oh, abstain. I was not present, so I guess I.
We know that. Okay. Tree Commission, Rick.
Okay, so the commission had 2 openings on the board and interviewed 2 candidates that came forward and wants to present 2 candidates for appointment to the tree commission. The first one is Steve Miller, who the board members met with, and found him to be probably a worthy contributor to the cause. So I'd like to make a motion to appoint Steve Miller to the tree commission.
Second.
I did some tree trimming with him. It's definitely a worthy addition to the cause.
Cool.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. The second person that the tree commission met with is Roger Kwan. He also had a nice interview with the board. And as Roger pointed out, he is a frequent walker in the village, and so is a good pair of eyes and a monitor on the state of the urban tree forest. So I'd like to make a motion to appoint Roger Kwan to the tree commission.
Second.
Discussion? It's gonna be a
What are
busy
their
person. On a lot of committees.
Indeed.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I need you to tell me what their terms are.
What?
Their
They are
terms.
3-year terms.
Thank you.
After the first one, they're always 3,
Thank you.
after getting the cycle going.
Unless it's the ZBA or the planning board.
Right.
And are their terms, when does it start, or does it start from today forward?
Today forward.
Okay.
That's confusing.
You done? Rick, you done?
I'm done.
Excuse me? Who seconded that, sorry?
I have a question. I submitted a request to the tree commission for pruning of some village trees, and it said on the website that it would be discussed during the meeting. Not specifically this meeting, but apparently.
The tree commission meeting.
No, it says they give their recommendation to the board.
Once they discuss it at their meeting, yes.
Oh, okay, so that's my question, they apparently
So we
haven't
didn't see it
discussed
yet.
it, so,
When did you submit it?
oh, 3 weeks ago.
Directly to the tree commission?
I left the envelope at your window.
Okay, I just got back into the office yesterday, so the tree commission hasn't seen it.
Oh, okay, fine.
And then they still need to have their meeting, which could be any time over the next month.
Their next
And then
meeting
they
is
do-
January 8th.
Okay.
And then they'll go out and review it, and then they present it to the board.
Okay.
For action at the next board meeting.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry.
Who seconded the last motion?
What was
I
the last
did.
motion?
Thank you.
Roger.
Roger, oh, I seconded Roger.
Eleanor seconded Roger.
Thank you.
Vanessa, climate smart.
Okay, just a couple things, because I know I've already taken up some time, but regarding that climate adaptation plan, I did want to just call out Leslie Kidder and Michelle Forlenza, Michael Forlenza, not Michelle,
Michael.
sorry. Michael, it's getting late. Thank you, Michael and Leslie, for helping with that plan. Also, thank you to members of the public who filled out that survey. We got 121 responses, and I shared the comments and the results with the board. So thank you, everyone, for taking that. Yeah, and then regards to compost project, people can still pre-register, go to rhinebeckcompost.org. We've had 118 people fill out the form. And then within 1 week, you will get an email from me confirming your registration. If you haven't gotten that email, let me know, because I'm kind of testing the system. But check your spam filters as well. And then, yeah, just something fun. We got the lid buckets for our participants. And I think that the compost task force is, we're gonna be kind of like compost elves delivering buckets. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, because it's a, you know, over 100 households. So, rather than having Martina have to give out 100 buckets all at once, we're gonna go and you'll find them on your doorstep.
So Vanessa, where it says that you
They come up.
should get an email within a week, maybe you should just put a note for people to check their spam.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, personnel, I'd like to make a motion to accept a vacation buyout for employee number 31 for 20 hours.
Second.
Verify that this is earned time.
Yes.
Great.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Fun part. I'd like to thank our deputy clerk, Chrissy Deneau, for 15 years of service with the village of Rhinebeck. Congratulations, Chrissy. Looking forward to another 15.
Oh, Chris is the best. Thank you.
All right,
Yes.
the time has come for us to depart. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:36.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.